That's what we were waiting for. Our signal, everybody's mic is on. Good afternoon. My name is David Smith, and on behalf of the Residents Council, welcome to Council Connections, December 5th, 2024. Today, we will welcome the Welcome Committee ladies, Halema, Hassan, and Alice Cross. And I think one of the things I want to say before we really get started is what's unique to me about the Welcome Committee is that the Welcome Committee reaches out to the residents. Other committees, the residents kind of find their way in as something they're interested or not, but the Welcome Committee makes itself available to a prospective, but especially brand new residents from the very beginning. So what I've asked these ladies to do to start is each of them take a couple minutes to tell you who don't already know them how they came to be here, how they came to be on the committee, and then we'll get started with the technical part. So who would like to be first?
We both moved in 2 days apart, so whoever goes first doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Would you like me to go? Would you like to go? Okay. I'm from New York City. When I tell people I'm from the city, they think I'm from Kingston. No. I had 3 separate careers, and they all involved heavy interpersonal contacts. I was a social worker for 10 years, working with mothers who were either going to surrender their children or put them up for foster care. Then I worked with overseas adoptions. I brought orphans from Korea twice for a total of 26. And I also worked with social service needs in Haiti, servicemen who had fiancés in Vietnam who wanted to bring them here, and servicemen who had fiancés in Germany. So it was a wonderful job, but like many social service agencies, we lost our funding. And while I was there, I did a human resources manual, and I used that to parlay into trying to get into human resources, which I did. I worked on Wall Street for 10 years in human resources. I liked the people part. I was interviewing clerical jobs, and then I was promoted to executive search, and then I was promoted to numbers. I don't do numbers. So that was a painful experience. And while I was looking for my next job, a friend of mine decided to leave, and he was stubbing in a local high school. And I thought, well, I'll try it while I find something better. Well, I loved it. And 20 years later, I retired from there. The last 5 years, I was interviewing Teach for America, the high caliber college students who were looking to join teaching. And that was wonderful. What I found was whether it was Harvard or Yale or Princeton or Stanford, they were good on paper. But when they got into a classroom, the eighth grade, ninth grade kids shredded them. So, and I got here because of a hot air balloon, but that's another story. I'll tell you another time.
Alice?
Yeah.
Leave us hanging on that one here, but we'll get there.
Ready for more. I grew up in Southern California, which is very nice because I loved it. And it was a wonderful place to grow up, living in an orange grove. My mother was early childhood, and so I went into teaching east of college and married somebody from whose father went to high school with my father from over on the other side of the ridge on the train. So I don't get me into history. I'll say way too much. Anyway, so married, lived here 50 years, and John was loved to chop wood for our fireplace and so on. So he had injured a shoulder and was shoveling snow, and that would have been when this had just opened, but we had been reading in the paper about it and its delays and so on. So he said, I'm not sure how much longer I can shovel this stuff. And we hadn't been very sick. We had a big old house, old farmhouse. And and he heard about the health care available. And he said, that's it. And the next week I was over here. This was probably February of 2010. And we came in September of 2010. I was a school teacher. I didn't have a romantic life with all this travel and so on that people do, I've spent a couple of summers during college thinking I would do social work, and I learned that I did not need to do social work. So I did teaching instead. Went to New Paltz for a year, so on. So I feel and my roots are here. So this was a wonderful boon for our lives. And John was here until 2020, and it was a great place for us.
Okay, I want to just add something that what you just said. You said you didn't travel much. You had your own airplane, Alice.
Yeah, but we didn't take lots of boat trips and
No, they flew everywhere.
tours to Florida.
Well, that's pretty.
Yeah, that was the great thing. He had always dreamed about doing that all his life, and finally, when he retired, we had a plane for about 20 years. Yeah. A little plane.
Doesn't everyone? No. Okay, so now.
One thing I neglected to mention, after I was here 4 years, I used to write the bios myself. They didn't write them like they do now. And I went into Gretchen and I said, anyone you'd like me to profile? And she said, yeah, this guy, Steve Cohn, he's just moved here and he's involved in everything. So I interviewed him. And about a week later, he called me and he said, well, you know about me. How about I interview you or find out about you? Long story short, we were together for 6 years until he developed dementia. And it was just a wonderful thing.
Okay. The Welcome Committee is not a dating service. Okay. So if Halema comes to interview, she's not looking for a date. Well, maybe she is. I shouldn't. So you've both moved in within 2 days of each other. How did each of you come in contact with whatever was the Welcome Committee when you first found it?
We had a wonderful neighbor 2 doors away who was Jean McAvery. If anybody knew her, she passed away in the health center not too long ago. Anyway, she was the epitome of welcome. So that's how we got to it. And it turned out she was on the Welcome Committee because I have the minutes back to 2011. So it started pretty soon after this place opened.
And no surprise, I broke my arm 3 weeks after moving here. I have a habit of doing that. I only have 2 arms. I better not break any more. But Jean really took care of me. She was a nurse. And, bad arm in first, good arm in last. And she taught me all that.
So did she recruit you to become members of her committee?
No.
What did the committee look like at that point? Was it?
Not a lot of people. What, 4 or 5 people maybe?
Or a couple more. We used to, yeah. I don't think I was there in the very, very beginning, but there were a number of people that claim to have started it, I think. But anyway, it was Norma and George when we went in.
So you've been on it now each for 10 years or so. You're both active when we moved in 7 years ago. How has it changed over that arc of time? Your roles and the committee's impact on our community?
Well, we certainly have much more volume. I can tell you that in 2022, we had 38 new residents, 2023, 41, and by the end of this year, we'll have 39. So the number of new residents necessitated a larger committee and some more structure.
Okay. So what does the committee do? How describe, if you happen to be prepared for that question?
The good part of this presentation is that you've all been through it. So no surprises. We do have a mission statement. The purpose of the Woodland Pond Welcome Committee is to assist new residents in making a smooth orderly, and comfortable transition to their new home. To accomplish this, new residents are assigned a personal mentor, not a personal trainer, a personal mentor, who will provide information and orientation to Woodland Pond. New residents are encouraged to seek informational assistance from their mentor. The overriding value of this is confidentiality. Anything that goes on in the committee between the mentors and the mentees is absolutely confidential, meaning it doesn't go outside that committee unless there are a couple of exceptions, which we'll talk about.
So how is a mentor-mentee relationship established? How do you figure out who's with whom?
We work with marketing
Okay.
very closely. And before the person comes, she emails all of the whole committee and says who is coming and when. And we get as Halema said, she used to write the bios herself by interviewing the people. Now somehow Courtney has persuaded them to write their own, and they're phenomenal. Because they can tell about their whole life, where they're from and family and so on and so on. And then she boils them down to go into the newsletter, the monthly newsletter. But we work very closely with Courtney, and the first question before they even come is, who will her mentor be? So she gives us the names ahead of time, and in our committee, which we have once a month, a committee meeting, and then an orientation social for the new residents.
And Dave, the assignments are twofold. Sometimes someone coming in knows somebody on the committee, so that's automatic.
That's an automatic, yeah.
Other times it's by geography. Somebody's coming in to 3 North. We have mentors on 3 North, so it's assigned that way.
So you mentioned your meetings. You have 2 meetings a month, right? You have a
Right.
workshop meeting, if you will, and then a social.
Yes.
Talk us through what's likely to happen in either one of those meetings.
Well, at the committee meeting, I have a list that Courtney has sent, and with a listing clearly needing north wing, south, central, and so on. So then they volunteer themselves, the committee members, say, oh, I'll take that person, or I know the person, or whatever. So then I send Courtney the name, and she gives the name to the new resident. And then they feel as if they belonged because they have a name and a contact person, and we have a packet that we've developed that you said how the committee changed. It's evolved to, I think, serve our purpose much more than we did in the beginning when we were just sort of fumbling around.
That's the mechanical part of it. The other part of the meeting is to discuss occasionally, not a lot, but occasionally a new resident is presenting adjustment problems, either staying in his or her room or not going to meals or not mingling. And in that case, if the mentor has tried to help that new person along and it's not working, then we go to Sarah Leonard. She's the person who will take care of that. And she usually knows before we get to her.
Yeah. So it's typical, this is a question, is it typical then to start out by taking this person to dinner and introducing to some mutual friends and finding out what their interests might be and saying, well, we have an interest group or a committee or another person that has a similar interest, and that's hopefully how they, I don't want to say slide into, because that sounds like they're falling. Yeah, ease on down the road. Yeah. Is that?
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario, right?
Exactly.
Well, the one you just heard me tell Yakov about, who he already knew about, because things circulate very quickly in Woodland Pond. But this man has been here 3 days or something, and he already has made friends in the swimming pool, and he's a scientist like Yakov. So somebody else told Yakov about him. Yes,
but that's informal, right? That's not a mentor thing. That's just a nice person thing to do.
Well, our job is basically so easy because everybody is friendly. and we'll step up, especially if we mention, and the other person who is enormous addition, although not official, is Ruth, because she helps them figure out the reservation system. Sometimes she goes on for months helping them remember, come, whatever, to their reservation. So she is an unheralded outreach from our
I think some
committee.
people in the audience agreeing, nodding their heads, agreeing that she's helping, and that's good. That's good. So then you have another event each month. You call it a
Yes,
social.
we have the orientation, and that has a couple of different parts. One is Suzanne Orkovsky and Alice Ruffing present some really critical information. The alarms, the PERS, use of concierge, and
How
she
Rove
does-
works.
Yeah, I was just going to say
Because
that.
people that
Rove.
come from away very often are used to tipping the person that brings in their luggage, And of course, we don't do tips. So that's one thing that we get to very early to explain the Rove practices that we have here. And because people are then asked to give to Rove, well, what in the heck is Rove and how does it work and so on. So we're anxious to promote that because some people have tried to give a tip when they first come and they don't understand our country ways here.
Well, coming from New York City, everyone has their hand out.
Again, heads are
The
shaking. Yeah,
other-
we know that. Huh?
The other part of the orientation is the social part. We have cookies and beverages.
Some people not on the new welcome people come for the cookies.
Well, we slap their hands, but anyway, that's a chance for them to meet each other and to meet the mentors. Because even though they're assigned a mentor, that means they can't talk to other people. It's just like that. So that's an hour meeting usually, and it seems to go pretty well.
In addition to these monthly meetings, I know that there are several initiatives that you have shepherded as you've been chair, and even some other things. I know you want to get to them, so let's do that.
We've had for a while the familiarization tour where new residents take the van with June Feiner or another person and go through town and discover that there's 17 pizza parlors and, things like that. The restaurant list was made by Wayne and Artie Raphael. It's just local restaurants, which is something they had asked for. We initiated the Meet Your Neighbor, which is not that popular with some of the veteran residents, but I think it helps some of the new residents. The whole goal is to get the new residents integrated. More than once, you've heard people say, I don't know anyone here anymore. And we're trying to change that. We had a very nice mixer last March, which brought over 100 people, veterans and newbies, and that we might do that again. And that was pretty successful. So those are some of the initiatives. We're always looking for, we learn from the new people.
Mm-hmm.
What do you need that we don't have?
Okay. I've run out of things. Was there more on your list that I neglected to ask you about?
No,
If not, then we can have our.
I have one thing to add.
Oh, yeah, please.
Halema, come up with anything else?
Well,
Go ahead.
one of the biggest things that we accomplished this year with Alice and myself and the committee was to encourage administration to streamline the admittance for new residents. Why? Because we provided a list of several new residents that we didn't think made the criteria. And in fact, Michelle responded, and we now have a cognitive test as part of the admission process. Anything else?
We sent lots of questions based on our experience And we've already always worked with her, but it's never been sort of official or acknowledged. And she has acknowledged it several times. Some of you may have noticed lately. We sent her the questions based on our working with the new residents, because it's very difficult for those who are not equipped to, for one reason or another, physical or mental, to join a community of living together. And if the person who's admitted is not appropriate to the demands of this place, it's very hard on the person. It's very hard on the staff. And we notice it as trying to mentor and support these people. So
Probably the family also. Very hard on the family to have some big life change happen, and then it's not working
right
as smoothly as had been hoped.
Very true. That's a very good point. So anyway, we got a large return discussion from Michelle, having met with her team. And they also have standard discussion of the requirements and added several significant portions, including the cognitive test, which she returned their document with italics as to what she had added as a result of conversation with us. So we felt very useful.
We would have done it years ago, but we had one or two people on the committee who felt this was a management issue. And since we live with the people, we didn't feel it was a management issue only. And those people are not on the committee. We didn't kick them off. I mean, just attrition. And we were able to move ahead. And the fact that Michelle was receptive was very encouraging. The other thing is, this is not a static place. Things are changing all the time. 2 years ago, there was not the 2 hours free maintenance when somebody moved in, and there is now. 1 year ago, there was not the free lunch and dinner the day somebody moved in, and there is now. Certainly with the rehab that we'll be going through, we'll have to do a lot of hand-holding with people in terms of who's on first.
Of each other.
Yeah, of each other.
Yeah, there'll be new rules for everybody and everything. Huh?
New rules, like Bill, new rules.
Alice, you made a comment when we chatted in Halema's apartment the other day of what you get out of this committee. Could you repeat that for the? I wrote it down if you don't recall.
Oh, what did I say?
You said it's a joy. It's a joy to watch people fit in, which is, I think,
Yeah,
if you had to give a condensation of your.
You remember how you felt when you first came in and how bewildered some people are. And just to see.
Not some people. I think everybody is on the bewilderment scale to some extent. Yeah. Nobody just day one, all their questions are answered and they have nothing to.
It's wonderful to see, look around, people that were not here 2 years ago, in the Pondeliers, in the Dulcimers, in the Bell Ringers, running for council. It's just fabulous.
Orienting and fitting in, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. I felt, we're here 7 years, my wife and I felt like coming in as a couple was maybe easier for us than coming in for a single. I don't know if that's your experience or not. But it's obviously some of that depends on the personality of the individual, but I felt lucky that we could bounce stuff off each other.
Plus your double support in just overall, it is much easier. Yes. Mm-hmm. And we learn from each person, and some people are very helpful. A lot of new folks join the committee as soon as they're a little acclimatized. Yep. So that's the part that's very gratifying to see people catch on.
Yep.
It's also wonderful to see the way resident services works with people in distress. And we see that a lot. Well, not a lot, but we do see it.
Yeah. That's not something that those of us outside of your committee would know or should know or
right.
Anything. Okay. I think we've come to the audience participation part. Anything that they didn't say you'd like to know about the committee? Maybe you have a question about your own personal experience, or you want to say thank you to them for being your mentor. I don't know if anybody had them as a mentor.
Oh,
Well,
good, Stephanie.
Can I borrow this microphone?
Yes, yes.
And I'm going to ask my assistant to walk around the vast audience and we can share that. You can share that one. Fellow in the blue shirt's got a question too.
The pet ponders have developed a welcome for all the pets that come. So when a new person comes, if I'm not there, even though I'm not their mentor, I come to them and give them the packet.
I knew you guys did some things. I didn't know you were doing that as well. Good, good.
I wanted to echo your comments earlier about Ruth. Last night, there's a group of us that get together, and it's a very jolly group, and they have to put us in the far corner because we're too loud. They put Paul with us. And yes, and halfway through it, he said, "Why are you guys so happy?" And of course, there were 4 bottles of wine on the table, and we said, "Help yourself and you'll be happy too." But she does a wonderful job, and it's a good way to go.
Questioning.
Microphone. Halema's got it.
He was feeling uncomfortable. The person, well, and then people help. Like Jill Frasciano said, there was this new man in the swimming. He had come one day and he was in the swimming. And of course, that's hard to figure out too, to have somebody there and so on. So Jill had told me about him and that his wife he had very recently lost his wife. So, I mean, this kind of information is so valuable to us. And then I mentioned it to, Yakov, except he already knew about him. But I noticed him at the dinner table with you last evening and was so happy that it was just, that's how Woodland Pond works, and it's fabulous.
Yeah, Jenny said, I don't need it.
It's organic, she said.
No. First of all, I want to congratulate the committee because, I mean, it's been an impressive way to get in here and in very short time to get at least oriented to some things and knowing that, I mean, you can talk to somebody. The only thing is that our mentor, when we came here, didn't have too much to tell us. So can I get a refund for the difference?
You get points. No,
I get points. Okay. But no, seriously, I mean, there are a couple of things that I think it's very useful. And I understand that, I mean, in the meetings and having somebody go through, I don't know how many pages your orientation booklet is and so on. I'm sure that there is plenty of information, but there is still a need. For instance, many times, I mean, we'd like to know who are the people and what, I mean, other than looking at the resume or whatever the blurb on the newsletter, is what are the affinities? I mean, I just happened to come across another physicist, but I don't even know who else is a physicist here at Woodland Pond.
we have a quota. We have a quota system for physicists.
Yeah, I understand, but we may not have exceeded the quota yet.
Yakov or Dave. We told you the good part, but occasionally there is a new resident. I know this. I don't need any information. You know, there's the push off. I don't need a mentor. If I do, I'll call you. And in that case, we just back off. And usually that person either is a loner or has somebody here that they prefer to work with, and that's fine.
So I mean, in relation to that, how do you see that? I mean, for instance, there is a lot of committees that would like to have more people just come in and join and so on. And do you have any?
We are at a limit right now. You see the numbers we have. People can sit in, but we don't have a need for more mentors right now. Oh,
Yes, I mean, so people,
do that.
you know,
That's part
um,
of what the orientation is about, because we go around introducing ourselves, and each one of the current residents tells what they do for their,
during
pleasure.
orientation, but that's among the people that are just
the new
joined.
residents and the committee.
What about, you know,
Most
Mm.
committees are represented by the members of the Woodland Pond Committee, Welcome Committee. So we tell them what we enjoy, and then if we click in some way of their talking or our talking, then during the refresh cookies, we talk to each other. And I mean, you find out who's from, I found one that went to my high school in California when we had this introduction around, yes.
Also, since the synopsis of the bios are published in Woodland Life, person lists things they're interested in: photography, hiking, swimming. And the blurb on top that I write is, if you see somebody who's interested in something you know about, invite them.
Hold on. Yeah. Mr. Rolfe.
A quick question. Do you include in your package of information a roadmap of what the Woodland Pond site looks like? No? So they could still get, oh, they do get then something from marketing? All right.
Yes.
You mean like what's in what wing, or what rooms are in what wing, or?
Well, how do you get to the dining room? You know, from
Oh,
your
okay.
apartment?
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Well,
Or on third floor or whatever.
the mentor gives
That's
the
all.
tour, gives the mentee a tour when they first get here.
Yeah, but you get turned around 6 ways to Sunday.
We did introduce them now. Every time we now have a mentee, we have to come to your house and be entertained. Okay?
Okay.
Margaret didn't jump to that one.
All right.
Any other questions from one in the back, Yakov? I can't see who it is. Oh, okay. Yep.
I was curious about what changes you made into the admissions process. What additional issues did you suggest that they look for that weren't looked for before? What's different?
Cognitive test, and mostly the cognitive test. There was no cognitive test other than the one your PCP might have given you, which is a 2-minute test. This is a little longer. And also they've tightened the requirements to get the healthcare thing. And they seem to be adhering to the requirements for activities of daily living, which we know some people have moved here did not have.
Now they have two.
get the microphone.
They used to have one box of requirements here, activities of daily living. We also admit, which is an important part to make, the interview process itself. Well, you know, if you've been in corporate life or education, when you're trying to choose a new employee or a new leader, and you get everybody together to hearing and they vote on who they want to, which candidate they like. And they're all delighted because their candidate comes and the candidate is a total dud. It is very difficult to screen people through an admission, over the desk admission process. They used to always eat with the people because you get a really good sense of how well they function to eat with them, complimentary when they come for their interview. Doctors, family want to, well, just the same as with any job interview. It's bad to ask the person that fired the person to give a recommendation.
Probably me.
Whoa.
Sorry. I'm on fire.
Because they're, of course, going to give glowing reports on this person that they were needing to get rid of. So the admissions process into anywhere is very difficult. We admit that. And it's just working with people as we do one-on-one in the next couple of weeks. We sense a lot that the person talking across the desk hasn't had an opportunity to learn. This is a difficult process.
I don't believe this was distributed, but I believe you could ask for it. It's called the Woodland Pond at New Paltz New Resident Acceptance Process. I guess it wasn't distributed because you're all here already. So, but I think you could ask for it. And they, as I said, and as Alice said, they tightened up some of the requirements for being considered able to do, yeah.
Also, I have a friend who's on the wait list, and a couple months ago, he told me that he and his wife got a letter from Woodland Pond indicating that a new part of this process is like a second interview if you've been on the wait list for a long time. So that
Yes.
whatever they observed in you in whatever year when you put your deposit down may have changed, and they're going to look at something that
That's
might have
the,
changed.
they've added now a 30-day, people are on waiting lists for a long time. What happened in February does not apply to what happens now. So it's a 30-day from the time you apply, I guess.
Yeah. Or refill out the help form. Also, doctors don't always know or come forth with the real information.
I just have a suggestion because it's happened to me twice in the last 2 weeks. Do you have on your list that you can get eggs and milk from the
That's very good.
But a woman was commenting to me that the worst part about going shopping was bringing the milk home. And I said, but do you know you can get milk and eggs at the pub? And she was like, no. So maybe that should go on your list.
I have a question about the acceptance piece. Was it seriously considered how legal that is? Are there legal implications?
Michelle is right on top of that.
I'd be interested in knowing what you looked at.
Well, ADA stuff. Right?
ADA and something else.
They have a whole legal team here, and FHA, the Fair Housing Act, which I don't know, but also the Americans with Disabilities Act.
We have to have renters insurance and so on. There's a lot of back and forth with the legal counsel of the board. And also she talks to other CCRCs to make sure that it is watertight.
One question, how many people do you have in the committee now? And do you need more people or less? 14?
Okay.
Usually people don't resign. They don't leave until they're not able to be mentors again. And another thing, occasionally someone will say to us, oh, I'd really like to help with that. Or somebody learns and they volunteer that idea. They said the last person that was considering joining came to a meeting and then he said, I don't think I'd be a very good mentor.
Also, many years ago, a situation where the committee has to vet whether they think somebody is a good fit based on their involvement in the community, etc. And this one woman, we just felt she badmouthed everything. She complained about everything, very negative, and we felt that's not the kind of person we want.
Any other hands? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank you, Alice. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Always a pleasure. And we'll get together with Yakov and see who we got coming up for next month's interview. Thank you all.
Next year.
Next year, next month, next year, yeah.
Thank you.
I think, so. I don't know, just send the mic.
We keep talking, I don't need it, because I don't know if they shut it.